In this video, we will be answering these questions. How does the pawn promote in chess? How to promote a pawn in chess? And how to do en passant. Please make sure you watch the previous videos on chess before this one, because you'll learn many more concepts in chess which will turn you from zero to hero. I'll leave the link of those chess videos in the description below. Now onto the video. People always think about checkmating with big pieces like queens, rooks, knights, and so on. But did you know it is actually possible to checkmate with a pawn? I know, right? It seems very impossible, but it is. A pawn can actually be better than a knight, a bishop, and even a rook. This is because a pawn can do something called promotion. When a pawn gets to the other side of the chessboard, so this white pawn would start on the 2nd rank. When the pawn gets all the way to the 8th rank or to the other side of the board, it can be promoted into a piece other than the pawn or the king, which means it can be promoted into a knight, a rook, a bishop, and a queen. Let's see what that looks like. So, it's white's turn when white pushes the pawn. Now black tries to get closer, white pushes the pawn. Black gets closer, but he's a little too slow. And when I push, as you can see, I am given the option to choose between a queen, a knight, a rook, and a bishop. You almost always want to pick the queen because it is the most powerful piece in the game. Anything else is an exception. So I promote to the queen, and once you promote to a queen, you should know how to do the king and queen mate. If you don't, go watch that video. I'll put a link to it in the description. Now we have one more rule to learn, and it is called en passant. It's a French word, and it means to pass. Let me show you how it works. When a pawn is on a starting square on the home row, it can go 2 squares at a time, right? But the people who invented chess, they were like, this black pawn came all the way down here, and now that this white pawn pushed 2 pawns, it will never be able to capture this pawn and promote itself. And this pawn is just running free. So what the people in chess did, they made a rule called en passant, which means when a pawn is on the home base and it goes 2 squares at one turn, 1, 2, this black pawn on a4, when a white pawn or black pawn is on the same row or same row as your pawn is next to your opponent's pawn, you can go diagonally down 1 square and capture the pawn. As you can see, it just disappeared off the screen. Crazy, right? Now, there are some rules on how en passant works. Rule 1. It only works on pawns. You cannot have a rook that goes from the home row and goes 2 squares up. You cannot take the rook. It only works with pawns and pawns only. When you capture en passant, you don't actually have to say en passant. The third rule, and it's a really important one, is it has to be on the next turn. Black cannot move their king and white cannot move their king, and then black can't decide to take the pawn. As you can see, the computer won't let me do that. It has to be on the next turn. And the fourth rule, when you capture En passant, it has to be moved 2 squares at one go. It cannot be 2 individual turns. For example, if we make it white's turn, if white pushes this pawn, I know the pawns are side by side and they're next to each other, but black cannot go diagonally and capture the pawn because it took 2 individual turns from the home row to get to g4, and it has to be on the same turn. So now that you've learnt the pawn's superpower, or en passant and promotion, all you need to do is practice, practice, practice to master it. Write down your top learning in the comment box below. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!